The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension, the air thick with an electric charge of impending decisions that could shape the fate of entire civilizations. Seated in concentric tiers, representatives from countless species across the galaxy squabbled, their voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony of disagreement. At the center of the commotion stood Zyrak Thal, a battle-scarred veteran of the Kelvin Empire, his multi-limbed form radiating an aura of restrained menace. "The humans are weak," Zyrak declared, his voice booming across the chamber. "Primitive. Fragile. Their military strength is an insult to the term. They're a nuisance we've tolerated long enough. It's time to bring their planet under control." From the far side of the chamber, an elder, stooped yet commanding, leaned forward on his perch. Zorath Khan, a respected historian of the Valurians, interjected with deliberate force. "And I warn you again, Zyrak, attacking Earth is a folly greater than you can comprehend." Zyrak sneered, the corners of his mandibles curling. "Are you suggesting that the Council fears a race that calls itself Homo sapiens? They've barely achieved interstellar travel. They're a backwater species playing with technology they don't understand." Zoratha's deep-set eyes glimmered. "Your arrogance blinds you. Humanity is not dangerous because of their weapons, their ships, or even their intellect. Their danger lies in their relentless spirit, an unyielding drive that, once provoked, transforms into a determination that neither time nor space can diminish. They do not rest. They do not relent. They will hunt you. Forever." The chamber fell silent. The implication hung in the air like a volatile gas waiting for a spark. Many dismissed Zoratha's words as the ramblings of a historian clinging to caution, but others exchanged uneasy glances, recalling the few records of past interactions with the Earthlings. Zyrak's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Let them hunt," he spat. "The Kelvin fleets will sweep their planet clean before they even understand what's happening. I demand a vote." Far from the Council chamber, on a blue and green planet nestled in the spiral arm of the galaxy, humanity remained blissfully unaware of the debate unfolding light years away. On Earth, life progressed as it always did, chaotic, vibrant, and stubbornly tenacious. In the sprawling metropolis of New York, a scientist named Dr. Elena Ward paced in her lab, her sharp mind wrestling with a puzzle that had consumed her for months. Elena was a theoretical physicist and the unofficial leader of a team tasked with decoding a series of enigmatic signals emanating from deep space. The signals had started months ago, a faint but repeating pattern that seemed almost deliberate. The world's greatest minds had tried and failed to interpret the messages, leaving Elena's team as humanity's last hope to unravel their meaning. "What if it's just cosmic noise?" suggested Leo, her assistant, a scruffy astrophysicist with a perpetual smirk. "You know, the universe's equivalent of static?" Elena shot him a look over her glasses. "Cosmic noise doesn't repeat with this kind of precision. And it doesn't escalate in complexity over time." Leo shrugged, sipping his coffee. "Okay, then what? Little green men saying hello? Or something worse?" Elena murmured, her voice barely audible. The lab's lights flickered as if punctuating her words, and a cold unease crept into the room. Elena's computer beeped, jolting her back to the present. "We have a new pattern," she announced, her fingers flying over the keyboard. A series of alien glyphs scrolled across the screen, their geometry both mesmerizing and unnerving. Leo leaned closer, his smirk vanishing. "That doesn't look random." "It's not," Elena replied, her mind racing. "And if I'm right, they're trying to warn us." The Kelvin fleet approached Earth with grim efficiency, their massive warships cutting through the void like predatory shadows, their hulls gleaming with a dark alloy that absorbed starlight and bristled with pulsating weapon arrays. Zyrak Thal stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue marble grow larger in the viewport. "Prepare for orbital bombardment," he commanded, his voice a cold blade. "We'll target major population centers first. Let's see how long their spirit lasts when their cities are ash." Behind him, his second-in-command, Vinara, hesitated. "Sir, are we certain this is wise?" "The Council." Zyrak rounded on her, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. "The Council lacks the will to act. That's why they need us. Execute the order." The Kelvin fleet unleashed a barrage of energy weapons, their payload streaking toward Earth like fiery comets. But before the bombardment could land, an unexpected phenomenon occurred. The signals that had baffled Elena Ward and her team pulsed in unison, their intricate harmonics generating an electromagnetic wave so precise it disrupted the Kelvin weapon systems. The wave didn't just nullify their attacks, it forced their targeting arrays to recalibrate, momentarily paralyzing their entire fleet's combat capabilities. The fleet's firepower fizzled out, leaving Earth untouched. What is this? Zyrak demanded, his voice rising with fury. Venara scanned the readouts. It appears to be a defensive signal of unknown origin. It's overriding our targeting systems. On Earth, Elena stared at her screen in stunned disbelief. It worked, she murmured, her relief quickly giving way to urgency. Her mind raced as she considered the implications. This signal, it's not just protecting us. It's guiding us. We need to figure out what it's trying to tell us next. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she stared at the screen, trying to process the enormity of what had just occurred. The signal, it's protecting us. No. It's been waiting for this? Leo's eyes widened. You're saying the little green men are on our side? Elena shook her head. Not green men. Something else. Something ancient. The Kelvin fleet regrouped, their pride wounded but their resolve intact, adapting their strategy with precision. Engineers worked tirelessly to recalibrate their disrupted systems, while tactical divisions devised a plan to neutralize the electromagnetic interference, their determination steeled by the humiliation of their initial failure. Zyrak paced the bridge, his fury barely contained. We'll find another way, he growled. Humanity will fall. But even as the Kelvins plotted, a quiet resistance began to stir on Earth. Elena Ward and her team, now aware of the threat, worked tirelessly to decipher the full message behind the signals. Across the globe, governments and militaries mobilized, their resources pooled in an unprecedented show of unity. Unbeknownst to Zyrak, humanity's true strength lay not in its weapons or technology, but in its ability to unify under pressure. Earth's scientists collaborated relentlessly to decode the ancient signals, while citizens and leaders alike worked as one to face the cosmic threat, forging a collective resolve that no enemy could break. The Kelvins were about to learn this truth the hard way. The electromagnetic pulse that paralyzed the Kelvin fleet echoed across the cosmos, a stark reminder that Earth was no passive target. This unexpected defiance not only stalled the invasion but also sent ripples of uncertainty through the galactic hierarchy, forcing the Kelvins to confront a foe far more resilient than anticipated. Zyrak Thal, pacing the bridge of his flagship, growled in frustration. His multifaceted eyes scanned the malfunctioning displays, each a chaotic dance of static and corrupted data, an unsettling sign of the unknown force they faced. The ship's engineers worked frantically to restore control, but the Kelvin war machine was at an uncharacteristic standstill. What's the status of our targeting systems? Zyrak demanded, his voice a sharp crack in the tension-filled room. Venara, his second-in-command, consulted a flickering display and grimaced. Still offline, Commander. The electromagnetic interference is unlike anything we've encountered before. It's not just disabling our weapons, it's rewriting parts of our navigational software. Zyrak slammed a clawed fist against the nearest console, leaving a deep dent. How can a species this primitive mount such an effective defense? Are they working with another galactic power? Venara hesitated. It's possible but unlikely. The interference doesn't match any known technologies. Its patterns are unlike anything the Kelvins have encountered, defying their most advanced algorithms. Whatever it is, it seems to originate from Earth itself, challenging the fleet's assumption of human inferiority. Zyrak's mandibles clicked as he processed this information. Then we'll adapt. Order the fleet to recalibrate its systems to operate on manual targeting. Deploy reconnaissance drones to locate the source of the signal. If the humans won't surrender, we'll strip away their defenses piece by piece. On Earth, the global response to the Kelvin incursion was swift and unprecedented. The United Nations, typically a fractured body of conflicting interests, had united under the shadow of the alien threat. Military forces across the planet coordinated efforts, pooling resources and sharing intelligence at a pace unheard of in Earth's history. In the heart of a subterranean bunker beneath New York City, Dr. Elena Ward's lab had transformed into a nerve center for humanity's resistance. Rows of monitors displayed feeds from satellites tracking alien drones, telescopes capturing celestial anomalies, and military command centers coordinating Earth's defenses in real time, each screen a fragment of the global effort to withstand the invasion. Elena's team had grown from a handful of scientists to a coalition of experts from every discipline imaginable. We need to isolate the exact frequency of the signal, Elena said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. If we can strengthen it, we might be able to keep their fleet immobilized long enough for our defenses to counterattack. Leo frowned as he adjusted a spectrometer. That's a big if, Elena. What if the signal doesn't hold? Elena's eyes narrowed. Then we'll find another way. But we're not giving up. Not now. Across the room, a young cryptographer named Anika waved urgently. Dr. Ward, I think I've found something. Look at this sequence. Elena hurried over, her gaze locking onto the screen. The glyphs that had so far eluded complete translation now displayed a new pattern, one that pulsed with a deliberate rhythm. It's not just a warning, Anika continued, her voice rising with excitement. It's a set of coordinates? Elena's mind raced. Coordinates to what? We don't know yet, but if the signal's been protecting us so far, it's worth investigating, Anika replied. Elena nodded decisively. Get this to the Pentagon. We'll need a strike team ready to move immediately. In the upper atmosphere, the first wave of Kelvin reconnaissance drones descended upon Earth. Sleek and insect-like, they zipped through the skies, scanning for any anomaly that could explain the electromagnetic interference. One by one they locked onto the source, a sprawling patch of wilderness deep in the Amazon rainforest. Zyrak's flagship received the data first. He studied the reports, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. The signal is terrestrial, but the energy readings are far beyond anything these humans should be capable of. Whatever's down there, it's not human-made. Venara stepped forward. Shall we launch a ground assault, Commander? Zyrak's eyes glinted with predatory anticipation. Not yet. We'll deploy the elite vanguard to investigate. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we engage. The vanguard ships descended, their black hulls blending seamlessly with the storm-filled skies over the Amazon. Hidden beneath the dense canopy, something ancient stirred, its energy resonating faintly with the invading fleet. The tendrils of light weaving through the ground formed intricate patterns, as if communicating in a language lost to time, defying both the Kelvin sensors and human understanding. The Kelvin troops, highly trained and armed to the teeth, advanced cautiously, their weapons humming with suppressed power. They didn't notice the subtle vibrations beneath their feet or the way the forest seemed to watch them. Elena's team monitored the coordinates with growing urgency. A joint task force comprising the best soldiers Earth could muster had been dispatched to the Amazon. Among them was Captain Marcus Reyes, a veteran of countless conflicts who now found himself facing a battle unlike anything he'd ever known. Marcus adjusted his comms unit as the task force approached the site. Command, this is Reyes. Target coordinates in sight. The area is eerily quiet, no sign of hostiles yet, but the atmosphere, it feels wrong. A crackling reply came through. Stay sharp, Captain. Our intel indicates Kelvin activity in the area. As the team moved through the dense jungle, the temperature seemed to drop unnaturally. A strange hum permeated the air, growing louder with every step. When they reached the coordinates, they found themselves standing before a massive structure, half buried in the earth and overgrown with vines. Its surface glowed faintly, etched with symbols identical to the ones Elena had been decoding. What the hell is this? One soldier muttered, his voice tinged with awe and fear. Marcus gestured for silence, his eyes scanning the perimeter. Command, we found something. Looks ancient. Not human. Before the reply could come through, the hum intensified. The symbols on the structure began to shift, their light pulsing in sync with the distant signal that had protected Earth. Back in the lab, Elena watched the data feed with wide eyes. It's activating, she whispered, her mind racing through possibilities. What was the artifact preparing to do? Was it a shield, a weapon, or something beyond human comprehension? Determined, she turned to her team. We need every scrap of data on its energy output and signal patterns. Now. If we don't act quickly, we could lose our only advantage. Whatever it is, the Kelvins must not get to it first. As the Kelvin vanguard closed in on the site, their advanced sensors picked up the same energy surge. Zyrak's command console flashed with alerts. Commander, the humans have reached the structure. Their interference may compromise our mission. Zyrak snarled. Deploy reinforcements immediately. That artifact belongs to the Kelvin Empire. In the Amazon, the task force prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Marcus raised his weapon, his voice calm but firm. We hold the line. No matter what comes through those trees, we don't let them take it. The jungle erupted into chaos as the Kelvin reinforcements descended. Weapons fire lit up the darkness, painting the ancient trees in bursts of violent light. Amidst the chaos, the artifact's energy surged, its ripples distorting the air and creating a resonance that made both human and Kelvin combatants falter momentarily, as if the forest itself was intervening. Back at the lab, Elena clenched her fists, her mind racing. We're missing something, she muttered. The artifact, it's trying to communicate not just with us but with whatever force created it. We need to decipher its intent before the Kelvins exploit it. Leo looked up from his console. Then we'd better figure it out fast. Because if we don't, this battle is going to be the least of our worries. The clash in the Amazon jungle reached a fever pitch. The thick canopy overhead crackled with the acrid tang of burning foliage and the searing heat of alien blasts, each shot tearing through the dense undergrowth and illuminating the chaotic battleground in bursts of red and green light. Captain Marcus Reyes ducked behind a gnarled tree, his comms crackling with orders from command. "Reyes," came the stern voice of General Addison, "you must hold the line. Reinforcements are en route, but the artifact, it cannot fall into their hands." "Understood, General," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the maelstrom around him. "We'll hold. Whatever it takes." Nearby, Sergeant Elena Ramirez covered his flank, her rifle blazing as Kelvin soldiers advanced. The aliens moved with predatory precision, their dark armor blending almost seamlessly into the shadows of the forest. But they weren't invincible. Ramirez grinned as one fell to her expertly placed shot. "They bleed, Captain," she called, her voice laced with determination. "That means they can die." "Then let's make sure they do," Marcus shot back, emerging from cover to unleash a burst of gunfire. Around him, his soldiers fought with a ferocity born not just of duty, but of desperation. They knew what was at stake. In orbit, Zyrak Thal watched the battle unfold through the fleet's tactical displays. The Kelvin vanguard was engaging the humans, but the resistance was fiercer than anticipated. Reports of casualties trickled in, each one stoking his growing frustration. "Commander," Venara reported, her tone clipped, "the artifact's energy output is increasing. It's beginning to interfere with our communications and scanning systems." Zyrak's mandibles clicked in agitation. "It's reacting to the conflict. We need that artifact. Deploy aerial strikes to suppress the human forces." Venara hesitated. "Commander, the artifact." She trailed off, her multifaceted eyes narrowing as she studied the latest readings. "It's not just a source of energy. It's adapting." Zyrak turned sharply. "Explain." "The energy signatures are shifting," she continued. "It's almost as if it's aware of what's happening." A tense silence filled the bridge as Zyrak processed her words. "Then we must secure it before it adapts further. Mobilize additional ground forces. Leave no humans standing." In the heart of the jungle, the artifact pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. The symbols etched into its surface shifted constantly, their light growing brighter as the battle raged around it. Marcus Reyes could feel the vibrations beneath his feet, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to echo in his chest. "Captain," Ramirez shouted, pointing toward the artifact. "It's doing something." Marcus turned, his gaze locking onto the glowing structure. The artifact's energy surged, and for a moment, the entire battlefield was bathed in an otherworldly light. The light seemed to disorient both sides, making the Kelvins stumble as their targeting systems flickered erratically, while human soldiers shielded their eyes from its brilliance. The intense glow left a charged stillness in its wake, as if the jungle itself had paused to acknowledge the artifact's power. The Kelvin soldiers hesitated, their movements faltering as the energy wave washed over them. "What the hell was that?" one of Marcus' men muttered. "Focus," Marcus barked. "Whatever it is, it's buying us time." Ramirez, flank left. "Keep those Kelvins off me." He moved toward the artifact, his every step cautious yet deliberate. The air around it was thick with energy, a tangible force that seemed to push back against him. When he reached the base, his comms crackled. "Captain Reyes," Elena's voice came through, urgent and sharp. "We've detected a massive energy buildup in the artifact. You need to fall back now." "Negative," Marcus replied. "If I leave it, the Kelvins will take it. We can't let that happen." "Marcus," Elena insisted, her tone hardening. "This isn't just about protecting the artifact anymore. If it releases that energy, it could take out everything in a 100-mile radius." Marcus hesitated, his gaze flicking between the artifact and the advancing Kelvins. He made his decision. "Understood," he said. Ramirez, pull back. "We're retreating." The orders spread through the human forces, and with a mix of reluctance and urgency, they began to fall back. The Kelvins pressed their advantage, pushing toward the artifact, but their victory was short-lived. As the last of the human soldiers retreated into the jungle, the artifact unleashed a wave of energy that sent shockwaves rippling through the forest. Trees splintered, the ground cracked, and the Kelvin soldiers closest to the artifact were thrown back, their armor glowing red-hot from the energy surge. Back at the lab, Elena and her team watched the data in stunned silence. The artifact's energy output was off the charts, its readings defying conventional physics. Elena's hands flew across her keyboard as she tried to make sense of the data. This isn't just a weapon, she murmured. It's something far more complex. Choosing. It must recognize something in us, a quality, a potential. It's aligning itself with humanity for a reason. Leo glanced at her, his brow furrowed. Choosing what? Sides, Elena replied, her voice barely above a whisper. It's responding to the conflict and it's not neutral. It's aligning with us. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The artifact wasn't just a relic of a forgotten civilization. It was a force with its own will, and it had chosen humanity. Zyrak Thal stared at the tactical display, his mandibles clenching in frustration. The artifact's energy surge had cost him half of his ground forces, and the remaining troops were in disarray. Commander, Vinara said cautiously, our troops are unable to approach the artifact. Its energy field is impenetrable. Zyrak's eyes narrowed. Then we escalate. Prepare the orbital cannon, Zyrak ordered, his voice heavy with resolve. A flicker of hesitation crossed his expression as he considered the consequences. If we cannot have the artifact, we will destroy it. Better to risk obliteration than allow it to fall fully into their hands. Vinara hesitated. But Commander, the humans? They will share its fate, Zyrak interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. Fire when ready. In the jungle, Marcus and his team regrouped at a safe distance, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The artifact still pulsed in the distance, its energy lighting up the night sky. Captain, Ramirez said, what do we do now? Marcus looked toward the glowing structure, his jaw tightening. We hold the line. Whatever it takes. Overhead, the Kelvin flagship shifted position, its massive cannon aligning with the artifact. In the lab, Elena's eyes widened as the satellite feed displayed the weapon charging. They're going to destroy it, she said, her voice filled with urgency. Marcus, you have to stop them. How? Marcus replied, frustration creeping into his voice. We're out of options. Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard. Not yet. I'm sending you coordinates for a weak point in their defenses. If you can take it out, you might be able to disable their cannon. Marcus took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. The weight of the mission pressed against him, the lives of his team and the fate of humanity resting on their next move. Understood. Ramirez, get the team ready. We've got one shot at this. As the task force prepared for their final stand, the artifact pulsed again, its energy rippling outward. For a brief moment, the jungle fell silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then, with a roar of defiance, the jungle vibrated with tension as Captain Marcus Reyes and his team moved swiftly toward the coordinates Elena had provided, their mission clear. Disable the Kelvin shield array before the alien flagship's cannon could obliterate the artifact. The distant rumble of cannon fire echoed through the dense foliage, mingling with the acrid scent of charred vegetation left in the wake of earlier skirmishes. Overhead, the Kelvin flagship loomed, its massive cannon glowing ominously as it prepared to fire. Time was slipping away, and Marcus knew they were humanity's last hope. Eyes sharp, Marcus ordered, his voice steady but grim. We hit that weak point fast and hard. Ramirez, take point. Sergeant Elena Ramirez nodded, her movements precise as she led the team through the dense undergrowth. The artifact's shifting glow painted their path in pulsating waves, casting jagged, restless shadows that writhed with the intensity of the energy surging around them. The team exchanged uneasy glances, their faces pale in the flickering light, as if the artifact's glow was reaching into their very thoughts, stirring a primal fear and resolve within them. Every step carried a mix of dread and determination. Captain, Ramirez whispered over the comms, Kelvin patrol up ahead. 3, no for units? Engage quietly, Marcus replied, signaling his team to fan out. No time for a firefight. The team moved like ghosts, their training evident in their precision. In moments, the Kelvin patrol was neutralized without a sound, their dark armor blending with the forest floor as they collapsed. Marcus gave a terse nod and the team pressed forward. In the lab, Elena Ward paced anxiously, her eyes flicking between the satellite feed and the artifact's readings. The energy output was climbing, spiking in unpredictable bursts. It's responding to something, she murmured, her voice tense. But what? It's as though it's aware of the danger and trying to anticipate our next move. Leo, perched at another console, frowned. The energy fluctuations are synchronized with the Kelvin cannon's buildup. It's like, it's anticipating the strike. Elena's breath caught. It knows. The artifact knows it's the target. And? Leo asked, his tone cautious. Elena's fingers hovered over her keyboard. And it's not just waiting. It's preparing to defend itself, gathering energy, recalibrating its pulses. It's almost as if it's calculating a counterstrike. On board the Kelvin flagship, Zirac Thal stood rigid, his mandibles clicking in calculated frustration. The cannon's charge was nearing completion, its power growing with each second. "Commander," Venara reported, "the artifact's energy field is destabilizing. If we fire now, the resulting interaction could create a catastrophic feedback loop." Zirac's eyes narrowed. Catastrophic for whom? For both sides, Venara admitted. The blast radius could decimate the fleet and much of the surrounding area. Zirac's mandibles clenched as his voice dropped to a low, menacing tone. "Acceptable losses. Humanity's defiance must end. Fire on my command." Marcus's team reached the target coordinates, a narrow ravine where the Kelvin defenses were thinnest. The weak point Elena had identified glowed faintly, a vulnerable seam in the ship's shielding array. The team set up quickly, placing charges with practiced efficiency. "Charges set," Ramirez reported, her voice taut. Marcus glanced at the sky, the Kelvin cannon's glow now visible through the canopy. "Blow it on my mark," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. 3, 2. Before he could give the final order, the artifact pulsed again, this time with such intensity that the ground shook beneath them. The Kelvin cannon's glow flickered, and a wave of energy surged upward, striking the ship's hull. "What the hell?" Ramirez muttered, shielding her eyes from the blinding light. "It's fighting back," Marcus realized, his voice filled with awe. "The artifact, it's protecting itself?" The energy wave from the artifact tore through the Kelvin flagship systems, creating a cascade of failures. Zirac stumbled as the ship's lights dimmed and alarms blared. "Report," he roared. "Energy surge from the artifact," Venara said, her voice strained as she clung to a console. "Our systems are failing. Shields are collapsing and propulsion systems are degrading rapidly. Weapon calibration has been disrupted across the fleet." Zirac's fury was palpable. "Fire the cannon now." "We can't," Venara replied. "The feedback loop has destabilized the weapon. If we fire, the ship will be destroyed." Zirac's mandibles clicked furiously. "Then retreat. Regroup. This is not over." As the Kelvin fleet began to withdraw, the artifact's energy stabilized, its glow fading to a steady, pulsing rhythm. Marcus and his team watched as the alien ships retreated, their cheers mingling with the bittersweet relief of survival and the haunting realization of how close they had come to failure. Each soldier bore the marks of battle, scraped armor, trembling hands and haunted eyes, yet in their exhaustion there was a glimmer of triumph. Marcus allowed himself a moment to breathe, the magnitude of what they had achieved settling heavily on his shoulders. The jungle around them, scarred by the battle, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, but the team couldn't shake the memory of how close they had come to annihilation. Marcus took a moment to glance at his soldiers, faces streaked with dirt and determination, and felt a surge of pride. "We held the line," he thought, though the cost was etched into every one of them. Back at the lab, Elena slumped into a chair, her exhaustion evident. Leo placed a hand on her shoulder. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with quiet pride. Elena shook her head. "The artifact did it. We just survived." "Survived to fight another day," Leo added. "And maybe to understand what this thing really is." Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the screen displaying the artifact's now stable energy signature. "One thing's clear," she said. "It's not just a relic. It's a guardian. And for now it's on our side, but this is only the beginning. Whatever created it left a message, and we have to figure out what it's preparing us for." In orbit, Zirac glared at the distant blue planet, his mandibles twitching with barely suppressed rage. "They have not won," he muttered. "They've only delayed the inevitable." Venara approached cautiously. "Commander, we must regroup. The Council will demand an explanation for this failure." "Let them demand," Zirac spat. "The humans will fall. If not today, then tomorrow. Prepare the fleet to return to Kelvaris. We'll need reinforcements." As the Kelvin ships disappeared into the void, Earth's defenders exhaled a collective sigh of relief. For now the planet was safe, but the battle had revealed just how precarious their survival truly was. Standing near the artifact, Marcus Reyes placed a hand on its surface. The vibrations beneath his palm were steady, almost reassuring. "You've got our back, don't you?" he murmured. As his hand rested on the artifact's surface, Marcus thought about what this victory meant, not just for the battle they had won but for the future of humanity. The artifact had chosen to stand with them, but its purpose remained a mystery. If we're going to understand this alliance, we'll need to be stronger, smarter, and more united than ever, he resolved. For now, humanity had prevailed, but the fight had only begun. If we're going to survive what comes next, he whispered, we'll need every bit of strength you can give us. The artifact pulsed once as if in response. Marcus turned to his team, a faint smile breaking through his exhaustion. Let's head home. We've earned it, he said, his voice carrying a rare softness. To Marcus, home wasn't just a destination but a fragile beacon of hope, a reminder of what they were fighting to protect and the unity they would need to face whatever came next.